Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Good evening, everyone. My goodness, have we got a packed show for you this week on Road to Cheltenham. It's good stuff, I think. We're looking back, looking forward to. Whether we're any good, that's another matter.
That's a completely different matter. It could be, yeah. It was a very interesting weekend.
Let's start with the obvious place to start, which is a race that felt massively consequential. The Fighting Fifth at Newcastle. Golden Ace won it again with two principals against her bowing out. How did you see it?
I didn't see it turning out the way it turned out anyway. That's for sure. I mean, I don't think many people did. The champion hurdle winner goes off at 22-1. So no point in after speaking. How did I see it? It was dramatic. I mean, Constitution Hill kept up his current trend of throwing himself on the floor. Personally, it's only my opinion, I thought the New Line was going to win. He was the one I fancied. He was the up-and-comer. He'd done a few things wrong, had a look at a wing, but I thought he was still in control when he fell two out, and he was the one. If you said to me here, take one out of the race, I'd have him.
Okay. Well, we're going to go through each one of them and ask the relevant questions of each one of the key players in the Fighting Fifth in turn. The place that we must start, the place that we should start, is of course with Golden Ace. Now, Josh Stacey has hot-footed it down to Somerset today to talk to her trainer, Jeremy Scott, and I kid you not, he is hot-footing it back to the studio to join us shortly, but he wants to reflect on his and Lorcan Williams' Group 1 success, their second in open company, and Josh caught up with Jeremy earlier today.
About the race?
Really well. I mean, this is the first time we've actually counted her, but you know, all things seem to be absolutely fine, and certainly no cuts or anything. So we are hopefully good to go.
There's a conversation when it comes to her about luck, but you've got to be in it to win it. And if it keeps happening, when does that conversation stop?
I don't know. I mean, it's much easier being the underdog, and so you know, taking the pressure off us. But look, I thought she was very professional the other day, and who's to say what would have happened? You know, had the new line stood up. I mean, how often the complexity of a race changes over those last 2 or 3 furlongs. So I thought she did it very well. I think the Neiman line comes out with great credit, finishing as close to us. So you could argue, you know, has Neiman line run well above himself, or have we, you know, Amsterdam and ourselves run below ourselves? So, you know, I think, you know, you can debate it whichever way you like. But no, we were delighted with her run.
Another championship grade 1 hurdle, a fantastic achievement. The roadies will be particularly interested as to where she's going next. Christmas?
Well, originally I was thinking not, but actually if she's come out of it really well and all's looking good, at the moment, I'm not sure who's going to run in that race. So we could possibly run there and then probably wouldn't run again till the festival maybe.
And that is just a snippet from what will be a full feature with Jeremy Scott, and you'll be able to see it in the days before Christmas. I really like listening to Jeremy, but we've got to give plaudits to this mare. She turns up, and the way she jumped the last, I mean, that was super to watch.
It was very much on the edge even, and the same goes for Amsterdam just behind. I mean, they were all low and slick at the last, and that sort of jumping has been catching a few out of late. But look, she's a very, very good mare. She's won a mare's hurdle where she beat Brighter Days Ahead and Jade de Grugy. She's won a champion hurdle. She's now a winner of a Fighting Fifth, and she deserves probably more plaudits than she's getting. But I guess when the one's shorter in the betting than you tip up, it's hard to get the recognition you deserve. But look, even listening to Jeremy Scott, and it's probably hard to like Jeremy Scott any more than you already can. He's so honest, but the way he's looking at it through to me and Lion, it's refreshing to hear.
Yeah, an 8-year-old, 3 times Grade 2 winner, supplemented for the race, wearing a tongue tie for the first time, seemed to perform extremely well. A high-class hurdler, but
on ratings, he was probably entitled to finish where he finished, there or thereabouts. I mean, with Amsterdam 157, 151, the mares are 152. She's getting the mares allowance, so you could put her to 159. sort of. You know, they have finished not far off where they're officially rated, the three of them.
Just to push back on your interpretation of the race, you felt that the New Lion probably had it under control when he crashed out 2 out. Lorcan Williams said afterwards, this was on Sky Sports Racing, I always felt I had Harry Skelton a little bit covered.
He's a jockey, isn't he? Did we ever, or I'm not a jockey anymore, did we ever say anything any different? Oh yeah, I'd have won anyway if you fall. And the lad coming behind us says he'd have won anyway as well.
I get that, but he also talked about travelling more fluently, jumping more fluently.
She did, and unrecognisable to the mare we watched in Wetherby. There's no doubt about that. But she did take a run last year as well. So, look, she obviously came forward for that. But Lorcan is riding her, and he was delighted with how she jumped and travelled, and she was that much slicker. Probably wasn't a frantic pace with the New Lion left in front so early. But look, that's the beauty of it. It's opinions. I know I'd like to have been on the New Lion, or the New Lion the next day anyway. Wouldn't like to have been on him last week, but the next day maybe.
Sounds like there'll be a difference of opinion yet again between potentially Ian Gosden and Jeremy Scott. Ian Gosden can obviously take a lot of the plaudits for running A in the Champion Hurdle last season, B, apparently the snotty nose from Wetherby wasn't entirely cleared up, but he said let's go for the fighting fifth. He said, I quite fancy going over to Ireland and giving it to them in their back garden. Now, I wasn't quite sure whether he meant the Irish Champion Hurdle or Punchestown. I'm hoping it was the Irish Champion Hurdle.
He did try that already in Punchestown, didn't he?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, didn't quite give it to the Irish in their own backyard that day, but if he wants to have another go, he's more than welcome.
I love that fighting talk, though. It's nice, though, isn't it? You've got the Champion Hurdler, why not?
You have the dream, why not?
Yeah, OK. So let's move on to Amsterdam. I didn't like that head carriage. What did you make of it?
Yeah, he ran around and he was fairly awkward looking. I liked the way he settled. I thought he ran well. At least he got around. You know, it was a good start for that race.
Did he overperform, underperform, or do what you kind of expected?
I'd say you're obviously hoping, Lydia, that he's going to perform better than he did. But the reality of it is he probably ran a fraction above what he'd done at Naas on his last start at Fairyhouse prior to that. And it's his first step into open company, but he has to improve. It's hard to put a number on it in the current environment, but in your own head you're thinking 157, he has to improve 810. That kind of is the benchmark, 167.
I thought it was 810 if you've got State Man around, if you've got Constitution Hill around, if you believe what Lossiman did and factor in her £7 allowance. Well, is the gap that high?
Come the day, how many Champion Hurdle winners run less than that?
Yeah, that is true. That is. Well, you're sounding very similar to what Willie Mullins thought. This is him in conversation with Gary O'Brien the day after.
But he ran well. I'm hoping he's another one that'll improve, and that puts him in the picture. I think the way the picture is now, it's a bit murkier than it was this time yesterday. But you know, Lossiman looks like she's still in position. You know, Golden Ace. She's won the Champion Hurdle. She's won the Fighting Fifth now. She looks decent. I mean, you might say she was fortunate, but you know, you can't beat winning, and she's done that twice. And I think our fellow is not far off that, and I think, you know, the benefit of that run will put him back into the picture, I think.
And you can see why. A length and a half behind the reigning champion hurdler on seasonal debut, travelling over to Newcastle, having only your 5th start overall and 3rd for the yard. There's an argument there.
Oh, of course there is. And Hurricane Fly got beaten in the Morgiana when he stepped out of novice company. So, of course, there's the argument, but the improvement has to come.
I didn't like the head carriage.
No, he definitely ran around a bit. And look, he had leaned a bit right on occasions. Looked like he was leaning left the other day. That has to be ironed out.
And can it be?
I don't know.
Would you enjoy the prospect of having to ride a horse at that level?
I still enjoyed that, Lydia. I'd still be doing.
OK, so the New Lion. Let's talk about him and what happened to him, because it wasn't just the fall, was it? It was also him shaping to run out at the fall.
Yeah, he did. He had a look at the second hurdle down the back and not completely off favourite Newcastle. I didn't ride there too often. I think it was the second hurdle down the back that he had a look at the inside wing. But horses do that, and he's not the first horse in the world that's had a look at an inside wing. But that said, he was low at the second last in Cheltenham, and Dan was talking about it during the week somewhere else. He was low at the last hurdle when he won at Cheltenham. He was a bit low at the third lap, or the hurdle before you turn him, which is 4 out in Newcastle, and he paid the price of the second last. But what you're hoping with a horse who gets a fall, now it hasn't happened with Constitution Hill, but what you do think with a horse like the New Lion, who is brave, that a fall will bring about a bit of self-preservation, and that he will actually, the next time when he's on that stride, go, oh no, and move his feet and dance rather than fire himself at it. That is traditionally what horses do off a fall. It puts a bit of caution in them. They back off a fraction. He looks pretty brave, but he's over brave and needs to come back a little bit himself.
All the things you're saying there, it does sound very similar to the thoughts that were going through Dan Skelton's head. This is him talking at Haydock on Wednesday to Peter Norton.
I expected him to be stiff and sore. He's not. We trotted him up the day after. He was sound. We trotted him up for the vets on Monday. He's absolutely fine. Couldn't find anything that needed any treatment. Physios were at him on Sunday morning just in case. Yeah, just fine. I mean, I think we got away with it, obviously, that he's okay. But we also didn't get away with the fact that he can be over brave at his jumps. 2 out at Cheltenham, very flat, very low. The last at Cheltenham, you know, he only just made it. We saw, you know, on the Tuesday, State Man not quite make it, and unfortunately on Saturday at Newcastle, it was our turn to not quite make it. He left a leg down, which is a dangerous thing to do for them, and hopefully, you know, he is an intelligent horse, and I'd like to say that he's a thinker and he'll go home and learn from this. He's a brave horse, so I don't see him not going back and facing those hurdles as aggressively as he has, but hopefully just a bit sharper on his feet. But I don't want to distract from the fact that he was probably going the fastest he's ever gone in his life. And I think that's probably what led to it, rather than indecision. I think it was speed. But they're there to be jumped. One thing I'm very, very happy with on Saturday, which is the one thing I wanted to see more than anything, was how he coped with 2 miles. Yeah. And it's quite obvious, at least to me anyway, and everyone connected with the horse, that 2 miles we're very happy with.
OK, so Dan does think that he's the kind of horse that will learn, that he'll still be brave, but will have learnt to move his feet a bit better. That's his instinct. He says speed has contributed to that fall, but he's comfortable, and everybody else in the team is comfortable with the horse at that trip. It sounds like it could be a contradiction. Why is it not?
I'm not sure why it's not, but what
you think it is a contradiction?
Well, maybe. No, I don't think it is. But what he had in him was a step. What a jockey would call a step. He stepped at the second last in Cheltenham. He stepped. I know Stateman didn't quite get there in a champion hurdle, but when Stateman left the ground, he went up and didn't quite get there. When he left the ground in the novice hurdle, he was going one direction, downwards from the word go, and that's what you call stepping. And he stepped the other day, and hopefully the fall will have made him think about stepping. And it's the worst experience as a jockey, a horse that steps. But if you're a jockey and you get up on a horse, you expect that the horse, or you're hoping that the horse has enough self-preservation to think that he has to get over that jump. And that's what you want. And Harry Skelton will be hoping the New Lion has learned from that fall. And
doing it at speed, I mean, it will have been the fastest.
It's the same as driving a car. Everything happening at speed brings more risk. But if you're going to be a champion hurdle horse, you have to be able to do it at speed.
Coming back to he found himself in front. That wasn't anybody's fault. It was because Constitution Hill had crashed out. There was nothing that Harry Skelton could do about it on that occasion. In future, what can he do? Because you've made the point a few times in past series of Road to Cheltenham that actually that shaping to run out thing, you might see more often than you think. Like Denman, you make the point.
Often, and you often would have seen it happen down the hill in Cheltenham, especially the second last hurdle, jockey in front, minding their inside with somebody coming behind, and they're riding a fraction tighter than they probably should in front to the inside wing. The jockey in front has to ride almost a horse width off when you violent hurdles, and so that leaves a gap behind you. So you're going to the wing, a horse width off, and then drifting into the space to stop someone coming through on your inside. But if you split the difference, you bring that inside wing into sight, and horses will look at it. It is nature. You'd prefer if they didn't, but they do look at it. But good horses have to be adaptable. You have to be able to adapt to any situation. Constitution Hill didn't start off his career making the running, but when he got to the start in the fight in fifth, everyone was lined up behind him because he was the one to beat, so he had to go and make the running. It's happened to him before. It happened with big bucks. He was a hold-up horse, but people realised after a while that, by the way, there's no point in giving him a lead, so we'll just sit behind him. Now, it didn't work either. He'd go to Newbury and everyone lined up behind him. He'd go along upsides in front and win, and then people would think, oh, sod that, we'll give him a lead again in Ascot. But good horses, especially jumpers, have to become adaptable and have to be able to be ridden every which way. So therefore, actually, having had to make the run in Newcastle will have taught the new line.
Okay, last question on the new line. If he had a stood up and won in the way that you think he had, would his rating have been put up? I don't think it would have been.
I honestly don't know. That's up to...
As in, do you think that he improved his form? Is it
I do. I do. I think when you get out of novice company, I do think he would have improved his form, beating Golden Ace and Sandown and the main line. I therefore would think his rating should have went up. So I would have put his rating up personally, but handicapping is maths, it's not opinion.
Okay, you've seen a couple of times that picture of both Constitution Hill and the New Lion running loose. Let's talk about Constitution Hill. And more than anything, I felt sad seeing him fall for the third time in his last 4 starts. This is what Nicky Henderson immediately reacted. This is him reflecting on Monday when talking to Nick Luck on his podcast on Monday, but he's reflecting on how he immediately felt. And anyone who's watching ITV Racing would also have seen him talking in interview with Ollie Bell along these lines as well. And he's accepting, understandably, the responsibility and how gruelling it is for him and for Michael Buckley, Constitution Hill's owner, to have this responsibility for the horse that they love.
I actually thought Nicky did well on ITV when he came on live after the race. It's okay for all the rest of us to have an opinion, but actually what Nicky Henderson says is a decision. It's not just an opinion.
Yeah.
So I thought he did well in the immediate aftermath of it, and what he decides to do with the horse going forward, it will take a lot of consideration, and there is that extra pressure. Yeah, Constitution Hill has a following like every other horse.
Yeah.
More unlike every other horse. More so than every other
absolutely.
horse. Yeah.
He's crossed the Rubicon. He is box office. He's a different kind of horse.
You could see that in Newcastle, looking around the ring on Saturday, the crowd that was there, not very reminiscent of an all-weather meeting there.
So you've analysed already in this series the indecision, the lack of confidence in what he's doing. How do you analyse this fall?
I think it's moved on again. Look, you look at it and you think about, say, and the New Lion. You're hoping that he will get some bit of self-preservation out of that fall. But when you keep looking at Constitution Hill, he's done the same thing 3 times.
Are you saying he's not very bright?
Well, you start to wonder. I mean, why does he not back off? Why is he not, from hitting the ground 3 times, has he not decided, actually, I can't get over the jump if I do that? Why hasn't it resonated with the horse? I always think, I remember years ago, Florida Power going in the door of the walker, and the door wasn't quite 90 degrees and he caught his hip. If you didn't have the door beyond 90 degrees, he wouldn't go on the walker from that day forward. Horses are clever. So why is he not realised that if I actually get off the ground and don't make a shape, I'm going to fall on the floor? And that's what he's done 3 times now.
And you don't think it's fair?
No, because if he was fear, he'd back off. And that's what he's not doing. Like it's like anything. If you put your hand on the cooker and you burn it, it hurts you. You don't do it again. When you get a fall, it does hurt. I know that part. Definitely hurts the jockey. You can't speak for the horse. But you just wonder why he hasn't backed off. And I spoke to loads of different people whose opinions I really respect. People that have done a lot of jumping, who are a lot older than me, and they all have the same opinion. Why isn't he backing off? He should be now gone where he's looking at it and thinking, I don't want to. Whereas he's doing the opposite. He's just thinking, aha, I'll do it again.
Brief post-mortem, things that is being said out there. Was it Nico de Boinville's fault?
No, it wasn't Nico de Boinville's fault. But
why
where
not?
we live in, somebody has to be to blame.
But why not?
Because Nico de Boinville, to me, technically did all the right things. Now, that's only my opinion. He kept contact, he squeezed him forward, and he was on a perfect stride, and he just squeezed him forward and he gave him the office to go. Nico didn't change his mind. Constitution Hill changed his mind, but we can't ask Constitution Hill why he changed his mind.
Both Nico de Boinville and Nicky Henderson have mentioned the padded hurdles several times.
No.
No, go on.
He jumped 7 or 8 padded hurdles in the International last year. Yeah, he made a mistake at the last, but he didn't throw himself at it. He jumped 5 in the champion hurdle before he decided to fire himself on the ground. He had jumped 10 of them in entry before he threw himself into one. No, to me, looking at them, they look quite the same. I wonder, actually, when you think about it the other way around, people are blaming the padded hurdles for him falling. I wonder how the padded hurdles actually stopped him getting hurt.
It's interesting you should say that. There's some statistics that the BHA put out shortly after this with all the chat about padded hurdles, saying that as these hurdles were phased in the last 10 years, they've reduced the risk of fall by 11%, and the overall faller rate since 2016 has dropped from 1.96% to 1.65%. You're arguing that actually that those hurdles might have helped preserve constitution.
I don't know, but it's another way of looking at it.
It is.
And when you went to Punchestown last year over timber hurdles, he didn't exactly blow me away with his jumping there now either at Punchestown, and they were the timber hurdles that he's supposed to jump just fine. He gave the first about 12 feet, and I'd say James Bone couldn't wait to get off him. And when he got off him, I'd say he was thinking, I hope Nico de Bonville is back the next day for this fella.
It wouldn't be Constitution Hill, Nicky Henderson, if there wasn't sort of rumour washing around, and it sort of dribbled out. Now, some people had apparently heard that Constitution had had a fall when schooling, and some people knew about this or had seen some chat about this on Friday. I didn't hear about this until well after the race on Saturday, personally, and it meant that Nicky Henderson has quite pointedly made this unprompted statement, as in Nick didn't ask him this question, he volunteered this point, that he has never put a foot wrong jumping in his whole preparation, not a foot. His work has been exceptional. It has been faultless. Since then, the social media has carried on going, always a difference between a faller and a seat. You know, I feel like we're speaking of something that's gone.
Well, I obviously live under the same rock you're under, because I didn't hear about this until after the event either. Yet everybody was telling me seemed to know about 2 days beforehand. So I'm a firm believer in believe half of what you see and nothing of what you hear. That's where I stand. Well,
and Nicky Henderson has made a categorical statement. Let's move on to the future and what future there might be, rather than raking over all of that. What would you do? Here is Nicky Henderson's thoughts about what he's mulling over. The flat. One thing he's completely counted out is running over fences. He said that is categorical. He won't run over fences, that I can tell you. He's also ruled out retirement because they've got an 8-year-old in their prime. And he added at the end, I'm certainly not going to promise you that he'll never jump a hurdle again, because that's not the case. He will, and we'll be working on it as we have the last 6 months. Now, he began the conversation with Nick Lock on that podcast saying, we're going to let the dust settle for the next couple of weeks and then decide what to do. But it seemed instinctively also on the Saturday that having a go on the flat might be uppermost in his mind. What do you think? What would you do with Constitution Hill?
He's probably public property, so the pressure is huge. And I can see the merit in campaigning on the flat. Now, I don't know Constitution Hill that well. I couldn't tell you whether he'll go on summer ground or not. Real summer ground, you get to Ascot in June or into July, but there will be slower ground in the spring and slower ground again in the autumn. And I don't know, I mean, you look at some of the horses that have won races in the past, you would have to imagine Constitution Hill is a better horse than Wicklow Brave, and he won an Irish St. Leger. Like, there is possibilities, and look, who'd have thought that Ethical Diamond could win a Breeders' Cup? I mean, that's not probably realistic for Constitution Hill. It's a different pedigree, it's a different type of race, but to think he could be a very good stayer on the flat, yeah, I think he probably could be.
Yeah,
what was Mike Winters' mare? Miss United. There are loads of horses, when you think about it, that have crossed both codes and been quite good at it, and if he can prove himself to be a good flat horse, happy days.
I've softened on this slightly. Immediately in the aftermath of the fall on Saturday, I was thinking, do I really want to see Constitution Hill jog around Chelmsford and get a handicap mark? But, on reflection...
People watched Sea Pigeon do that in the past, and he won an Ebor, and I don't remember that, don't ask me, that came into my head. But there have been loads of really good jumpers who would traditionally in olden days have started on the flat. We don't do it anymore, but who's to say Constitution Hill can't?
Totally agree now. And also you have to think about the horse. You know, this is a horse that has been bred for this job. He's an equine athlete. You know, he's 8 years of age. That's a long time bored in a field, isn't it?
Well, having watched him jumping hurdles, I'd hate to go 3 days Enfant on.
Right, OK. Let's move on. This is what the betting looks like in the aftermath of the Fighting Fifth. Lossiemouth went into 6-4 in some places and come back out in other places to 2-1. She's long on the exchanges. The one that zoomed in is Sir Gino into 7-2. And Nicky Henderson has said it's crossed his mind over the weekend that he might start that horse off out at the Christmas hurdle if the horse is ready at that time. So if we think about horses that might be coming in from left field or horses that we should be considering now, Sir Gino that I've just mentioned, William Money, who missed his intended seasonal debut in the Morgiana, but can you see a scenario where Brighter Days Ahead reverses from novice chasing?
No, I just can hear Eddie O'Leary. She's a chaser, bought to be a chaser, going to be a chaser, and I imagine that's where she'll go. William Money is definitely one that warrants a lot of respect. Sir Gino, it depends on, as Nicky said, he's looking for a target. They're waiting for Sir Gino to show them that he's right. So it'll be interesting to see what Sir Gino they get back. But William Money is the obvious one, isn't he?
OK. We can have a look at what the current 2-mile hurdlers' sort of hierarchy look like. Time to Form have said about that. In yellow is Stateman. Oh, by the way, how is Stateman?
Stateman is doing well, recovering. Long road for him, but he's doing well.
That's good to hear. The ones in blue are the ones set for novice chasing, and the ones in white are potentially the players. And the reason, there's a couple of French horses in there as well, Kingland and It's Win O'Clock, who may and may not come over. It just shows you, characterises what the standard is, and it comes back to Willie Mullins's point, the way the picture is now and what will it take to win a champion hurdle.
Do you wonder did the skeleton see this coming with Cabral de Matan?
No.
Is that why they blew that mark for 24 grand?
Doubt it very much. Right, OK. I suppose the only way in which I might see Brighter Days Ahead coming back to hurdles is she's missed a couple of engagements already. If she misses Christmas, really?
If she misses Christmas, but it's around the corner. We'll find out soon enough. Last
Friday, I sneakily put up William Money at 12-1 in one place, 10-1, also acceptable. He's now only 8-1. I'll be honest, I thought he'd be short of result of the weekend events.
Yeah, exactly. But look, obviously people want to see him, and it's so far away. I'd like to see him too, see what he does at Christmas. Yeah, that would be great to see. Barry Connell, his trainer, reckons he might well need the run at Christmas in the December hurdle at the Ep4 Christmas Festival, but has the Irish Champion hurdle and, of course, the Champion hurdle beyond that. So that's the fallout from the Fighting Fifth and the current state of play in the 2-mile hurdling division. In a few moments' time, we're going to hear from Josh Stacey because he's hot-footed it from Somerset, and he's going to be providing some of your views on this subject.
All right, lads, it's been a long day. Last thing, our ad slot for the Road to Cheltenham. Patrick, I want you to look into that camera there and say, hi, I'm Patrick Mullins and he's Ruby Walsh. And if you enjoy his analysis on Road to Cheltenham, you might like Paddy Power's From the Horse's Mouth podcast, updated weekly and available wherever you get your podcasts. Very straightforward.
All right, sounds easy.
Ruby, all I want you to do is look happy and smile. So, Patrick, if you give it a go in your own time, that'd be cool.
Hi, I'm Ruby Walsh, and that's Patrick Mullins.
No, OK, you can't even get your own name. Amateur jockey, amateur broadcaster. I don't know what that is. Forget about it.
Josh has joined us. I mean, that is a long journey from Jeremy Scott's yard. It's been a while since I've done it, but I imagine it took a while. Well done for getting here.
Thank you. It was a long day, and reading some of the comments, it could get longer as well. Some
you weren't reading while you were driving, were you?
Sorry?
You weren't reading while you were driving.
I would never do that, Ruby. Never do that. But what a weekend, what a race, dramatic. And what I love about races like that, obviously there are downsides to big horses falling, but it's put everything up in the air, and there are so many different responses to what we sent out. We wanted to know people's opinions then on the champion hurdle, and Phil Richards, the first one we're going to talk about, he says that Amsterdam, after the Fighting Fifth, was sent out to 20-1, and that's a massive overreaction. He admits that Lossiemouth is probably the standard bearer, but is 20-1 a massive price? It
probably is. I mean, he has to improve. We discussed that he has to improve. I think still has to improve 8 to 10 pounds, but there's no reason why after a run and with the experience he can't at least get half of that in his next start, and that only leaves him 4 or 5 short, and who knows what can happen on a day.
I do think it's an overreaction, but I think that might be mathematical. Academics is the word I'm looking for. I think in the end he won't win.
Another wanting to keep the faith with one of the horses that maybe disappointed at the weekend, the New Line coming down. Sean Lane, he thinks the New Line will win the Champion Hurdle, but wants to savour on William Money. He thinks that the New Lion, the way that he was ridden, didn't suit him, and he can't get away from the fact that William Money finished a length and a half behind Copec de Board. I wondered, is the real speed test or the pace test that we're going to find out going to be the next time the New Lion runs when he's ridden a bit differently? Depends
on where he goes. If he goes to Kempton, it'll be a speed test. If he goes to the International on the new course, it won't be. So probably not really going to find out till you get to the Champion Hurdle, but he's the one I'd want.
Sam Lucas wants to keep the faith with Golden Ace. He wants to keep the faith with the current holder of the Champion Hurdle and the Fighting Fifth trophy. An excellent each-way shot. I think she's 14-1. That does seem big, considering what she's done.
Do you think it'll be any shorter on the day?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
She could go to maybe the Christmas Hurdle, and if she was
it's probably hard to pick 3 to finish in front of her.
Mm-hmm. And she's got a proven habit of being in front of them come the line.
Jamie Dawson thinks that one of them that could finish in front of her is William Money. William Money all the way, length and a half behind Copec de Board, as mentioned before. Has he enhanced his reputation this season by simply not running?
He hasn't detracted from his reputation by not running, which is usually how you shorten in the betting market, in my view. Jamie, you're bang right there, obviously.
Lydia took your price.
May the horse be with you. What a brilliant Twitter name.
Honestly, I love that name.
He's fed up with the talk of Sir Gino coming back to hurdles. He thinks that Connections have always...
He's backed him for the champion chase.
He's backed him for the champion chase. But he thinks that Connections have always thought he was a brilliant chaser. They keep talking about how brilliant his chasing debut was. Let him do his own thing instead of acting as second string now that Constitution Hill is out of that picture, seemingly.
I get that. It's events, isn't it, dear boy?
It is, and it's one run over fences. Depends on his prep, how he's going. We said it 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think he'll end up in the Champion Hurdle by default.
May the horse also be with you.
In complete contrast, Ezra G thinks it makes complete sense to go hurdling in the second half of the season and a great starting point after the injury. I suppose if he runs at Christmas in the chase, he'll have to give loads of weight away. If he runs in the hurdle, he won't.
He won't run the Desert Orchid. That's an absolute... Yeah. No way on earth he lines up in a handicap chase.
I'm just enjoying the bit, and he wins it. I like Ezra's confidence.
Bullish, loves it.
Bang.
Tom Smith and Daniel James, they both, like El Fabiolo, think he's a massive price for the race if he reverts back to hurdles. They both feel that it's a weak division.
He's only fallen in 3 of his last 4 starts as well.
Who does that remind you of?
Well,
albeit over fences, but he has, and 2 of his last 3 runs are over 2.5 miles. Won't see him. He didn't enter the Christmas. He might get a bit like Sir Gino if he's ready for the race rather than the race being a target. But a huge price, maybe
66-1.
Possibly, but again, that's kind of a Willie Mullins one. It depends on the picture, doesn't it?
Another one of Willie's that people are thinking could be a big price is Cowabunga. How's he?
Hasn't run since January. Be into the new year before he gets back on the track, I would imagine. Look, has good form. Beat William Money in the maiden hurdle, second to Copec de Board in the maiden hurdle, but did pick up an injury. He's on the way back, but he's a long way off running.
Is it going to be difficult to place a horse like that? Levi says we'll find a Grade 3. Then there's not loads of them going around.
Red Mills hurdle at the end of January. No, there's a couple of races, all right, you could stick him into.
And then the final comment I thought you'd really
Limestone Lad and something else. There's a couple of those in Ireland, yeah.
The final one that I thought you'd really like was from Aaron Saunders. He says Ballyburn back down to 2 miles and gun from the front.
All mental brace position.
Stop the lights. You couldn't keep up with Teahupoo the other day. Would just stop. Go away. Go on.
That's it. That's the end of this section. When you rejoin us, well, actually, let's just carry on as you've moved us on to the next section bodily.
Over the champion. My God.
It wasn't Josh who suggested it.
He read it out.
Sorry, Josh. Right, what did you make of the Hatton's Grace, Grumpy?
What did I make of the Hatton's Grace? That was a good race to watch. I thought it was a great race to watch. From the word go, obviously Teahupoo lined up wide on the outside, Cashel Lad, Ballyburn usual head carriage, Shriek Glen Killen down the inside, Maxim on his outside. And like I thought they all jumped the first well. Ballyburn wasn't overly high or deliberate, but I thought from the word go here, Danny Gilligan was on his A game. Cashel Lad goes left, Ballyburn caught between horses, but look at Danny Gilligan stuck on Paul Townend's boot, half a length down, always keeping Ballyburn alive, and on the bridle around by the stands, Cashildale lad at a grab at the one up the hill, and down by here Danny Gilligan gets Paul inside behind Brian Hayes, and you're in there. Paul's trying to get out, Danny Gilligan's not having a bit of it, you're locked up, I have you in there, you're staying there. Third last hurdle then, Maxim fades away, Ballyburn gets out, but Teahupoo is quickening and Ballyburn hasn't the gears to catch up with him. It's only when Teahupoo starts to fade from the last that Ballyburn eventually catch up with him. Cashildale lad tips up and brings down Mystical Power, but I thought Jack Kennedy was brilliant, because if he'd gone off the home turn, he'd have folded 50 yards earlier and Paul Townend would have got him. He didn't, and he waited until he got close to the second last hurdle before he went. That meant he was quickening all the way between the last two hurdles. Ballyburn couldn't get to him, and it was only when Teahupoo faded in the last 50 that Ballyburn got on top of him. Heads up, heads down. Teahupoo wins, but I think it was more a brilliant ride from Jack Kennedy than Paul Townend had been in the wrong place. He goes 4 strides earlier, he gets beaten.
Could he have gone wide into the straight, Paul?
He didn't have the gears. That's what I'm thinking. That's why I saw it. Okay. And that's why I'm wondering how you could suggest him as a champion hurdler. He couldn't get lost him out off the bridle last year.
Which one do you fancy up to 3 miles? Jack Kennedy's view seemed to... He conveyed to Robbie Power that he was essentially going as fast as he could all the way around. He'd like to re-meet Ballyburn over 3 miles, but he also mentioned soft ground again? Yeah, he did. I must say I was impressed with Ballyburn. I thought with that run under his belt, he'd spit it out. He'd be an easier horse to ride the next day, he'd be hoping, and going up in trip, I think, will suit him. It was an eventful last hurdle. Cashildale lad was in the process of the form of his life, wasn't it? Running a cracking race. Was a decent novice last year, though. And Mystical Power had his feet taken under the... At least came back and showed something after a couple of dismal runs last year. But Paul did think he was travelling well before he pulled up on the stairs hurdle when something went amiss. It wasn't too major, but Paul did think he was travelling well back then. Now, I hesitate about this, but we've got a viewer video question, Ruby. Andy Duncan, make it a good one.
Hi guys, I have a question primarily for Ruby, which was sparked in my head by watching the Hatton's Grace and Ballyburn, and I just wanted to know how difficult or how much of a challenge it is for a jockey to ride a horse which has such a pronounced low head carriage, the way that Ballyburn was carrying himself, particularly in the early part of that race. Does it affect the jockey or the horse's centre of gravity? And is it more physically demanding to ride a horse which is doing that than a horse which is sort of behaving in the normal way? Thanks very much.
Andy, thank you. Thank you. Thank God for that. It's time to analyse this.
Yeah, and I think it does have to affect their centre of gravity. If you imagine all their weight is so much on their forehead that they're out on top of their head. But I don't think Ballyburn is quite as keen as he looks, and it goes through. If you look at Paul's feet, even to Jack Kennedy's feet, Paul's foot's no further forward, so he's not using his body weight to hold Ballyburn. Ever so slightly there now when he pulls him up a little bit to get him back, you can see him coming alive. But Ballyburn actually wants to lean on Paul. He wants Paul to hold him. That's just his style of galloping. But Paul never gets way back with all his body weight trying to stop him. And even here down from Ballyhack, when he does switch him off, watch how his head has come back to a level. Even though his pole between his ears is just about above his wither, Paul's hands ever so slightly up and down, and he's relaxed there. But the hardest part about riding those horses when their head is that low on the ground is the mental thoughts. Are they actually going to see the hurdle coming up? That's the most worrying part. You're thinking, can he actually see where he's going? But Ballyburn does lift his head when the jump comes.
Really interesting. Let us see what Willie Mullins thought. This is what he had to say.
Patrick just seemed to have it out yesterday and was talking about, does he settle well enough for 3 miles? Would you have any worries?
No, I don't think so. I think his pedigree would suggest that he'll get 3 miles. And there were the tactics we used today, but I would see different tactics maybe over a longer trip.
In terms of, would you let him stride on?
I think he enjoys striding on, yeah.
So positively ridden over 3 miles?
According to the trainer, anyway.
What would you make of that if you were the jockey?
No problem. Wouldn't bother me. You can always try. If it doesn't work, you can always revert.
You're suggesting it's not the right tactics?
No, you won't know until you try. Okay. And it'll be worth finding out before you line up in the stairs.
OK, let's have a look at the Paddy Power Stayers hurdle betting. Is he a worthy favourite?
Probably a worthy favourite. Is he 2-1 shot? Well, I'm not so sure about that. I did think in Post-Trois was good at Newbury on Friday, definitely going in the right direction. All right, Bob Oliver's not getting any older. Honesty policy, yellow clay have to come out. Cabral the mat time was very good at Haydock, but yeah, I don't know, 2-1. Would it appeal to you?
No.
No, me neither.
No, not at this stage, not at all. Right, let's move on to the novice chasers. Right, there are some good horses to look at here. First of all, let's look at Romeo Coolio, who dotted up in what I thought was a one-sided Drinmore. Would that be fair?
It probably was, but I think he made it look one-sided, more so than it was. Obviously, Raffle Dolce Vita went along in front, but your eye was always stuck on Romeo Coolio. Watch him here, even up to Ballyhack, how he's able to get in really nimbly without Jack taking him back or making him short, and he does it himself. He was spot on at that fence, shortens again here, and then when Old Man Dingle takes on the horse in front down from Ballyhack, and Jack moves him out, it's just how he attacks these. Boom. Fourth last, third last, second last, and then down to the last fence again. I thought he looked in a different league to the horses behind him. He always looked like he was going 3, if not 4 miles an hour, too slow for himself. And he just looked, and someone asked a question last week about fences making horses faster. Extra jumps definitely helped this fella. He's such a good jumper that the extra 5 fences in a chase are a massive bonus to him.
Funnily enough, Jack Kennedy said afterwards that fences have made this horse faster as well. That's exactly what he said.
Yeah, and it looked at it. I was really impressed with him.
Trip, ultimately, what do you think he wants?
I don't know. I mean, where does he go at Christmas? Does he go Leopardstown 2-1, Limerick 2-5?
Them's the choices.
Them's is the choices. And it probably depends on where you see him in March. Probably hard to go back to 2-1 if you see him as a Brown Advisory horse. If you see him as an Arkle horse, you're definitely going back to 2-1, so it'll be interesting what Gordon does with him.
Which do you see him as?
To me, there, back in Trip, I thought.
Okay. There's your answer. Right, Jimmy DeSoy, last year's Coral Cup winner, making his chase.
It did, and ran into the Big West, or well, not the Big Western, a Westerner leader. And it was it was a beginner's chase. Patrick booked him out in front. I thought he jumped economically and popped away. There was only a couple counted. Joystick and Jacob's Ladder went with them, and the 4 of them were well clear of the remainder most of the way. Look, he was a decent hurdler last year. He won the Coral Cup. He'd been second to Ballyburn in a Turner's Novices hurdle, and he did well. I think the runner-up is a very good mare of Henry's, and going up in Trip on softer ground would probably suit her. There's good handicaps to be won with the 3rd and 4th, but it was a decent performance. But from here, he's stepping into, even in Ireland alone, he's stepping into Kitzbühel, Final Demand, horses like that. So life is going to get a bit tougher for Jimmy DeSoy.
Yeah, it's Final Demand if you're going to Limerick. It's Copade de Board if you're going to Leopardstown at Christmas.
Yeah, but even the 2nd and 3rds below in Limerick are good horses, so it'll be hard for him.
Yeah, and a promising went in 2nd from the Big Western of the mare. Now, Salvatore Mundi, at a prohibitively short odds, I think 1-7, wasn't he? Was downed by his stable companion, Cabbagey Pike.
Yeah, and I don't know, everyone looks at this as in Salvatore Mundi disappointing. I don't think they're giving Cabbagey Pike the credit he deserves. Good gallop down to the first fence as you always get in Thurles. Salvatore Mundi was wide on the track, and inside him then his stable companion, Tartar, whatever, Saint Tartar unseated Sean O'Keefe. Loose one goes at Salvatore Mundi then across the top and lit him up a little bit, but I always felt Danny was jumping as well, if not better than Paul. Cabbagey Pike versus Salvatore Mundi. It's all right, Salvatore Mundi tears up the hill the 2nd circuit, but across the top even here, Salvatore Mundi gets in, Cabbagey Pike is quicker. Salvatore Mundi is long, Cabbagey Pike gets in, he's still as quick as him. I was really taking the Cabbagey Pike's jumping, switches, or Danny tailed Paul down the straight, switched out crossing the road. They rattled at the last, but even if you look at the 3rd horse in the white and red colours, they're starting to pull away from it. By the time they get to the winning post, the 2 of these are a long way in front of the opposition. I'd say it was a good race, and Cabbagey Pike, I'd say, booked himself a trip to Leopardstown at Christmas. Salvatore Mundi will go for a beginners, but I was taken by the winner as much as people were disappointed by Salvatore Mundi.
Yeah, a bit of a stumble as well, 3 out from Salvatore Mundi. I thought Cabbagey Pike was going out to his left. I think Leopardstown might...
Yeah, it might suit him. I didn't notice him that way over hurdles last year. He won his maiden at Punchestown and looked like he probably wanted 2.5 over hurdles, but maybe fences again are going to make him a better horse, a faster horse.
Can we talk Wendigo, who is a horse I really liked? Really unfortunate not to hit the frame in the Albert Bartlett over hurdles, I think, last season. And we've seen him a couple of times over fences. He won the John Frankham at Newbury. Yeah, and he was really tough. No questions answered. Arrived into the home straight like he was going to pick up and carry Wendigo, but the winning post is not below the fourth last fence. And by the time they got to the winning post, there was only one impressive winner, and that was Wendigo. Probably if no Regent's Stroll was mine, I'd be going back to 2 miles and letting him off, because he just looked a tear away. He's clearly got a huge amount of ability, but he refused to settle all the way around, didn't he? Just fall over, as Martin Pipe used to say. Stop pulling, they'll eventually give up. No hood as well, which, I mean, he eventually calmed down at Aintree. Yeah. Coincidence for the hood. Yeah, maybe the hood will go back on him, but he was quite a handful for Harry Cobden. Now, we've got some good novice chases over the next 2 days at Sandown. Tomorrow, we've got a 4-runner 3-miler, Doyen Quest and Quebecois taking each other on again, and Salva heading up in trip quite markedly after finishing behind Lulamba. And the big novice chase of the day on Saturday is the Grade One Henry VIII, and I think this is pretty fascinating. It features Lulamba, 4-6 favourite, Lump Sum 4-1, Be Aware 9-2, Al Nilam 7-1. Al Nilam's obviously going to make the running. Nico de Boinville got off Lulamba at Exeter and wondered whether 2 mile was his thing. We're going to find out at a very short price on Saturday. I'm with Lump Sum. I think Lump Sum's well, you know I am too.
Slicker, faster jumper. I think at Sandown, to me, Lulamba, Silly Isles more so than Henry VIII. OK. Right, those are our thoughts on the novice chasers. In the next section, for the first time this series, we're going to explore the novice hurdlers. Right, this is going to be conducted at quite the gallop. We're going to start with the 5-1 favourite, really, for the Supreme, and that is My Daddy Paddy, who won at Haydock on Wednesday following up his win at Carlisle. What do you think of him? Yeah, look, he created a really good impression at Carlisle, and maybe when something impresses you, you should follow it. But look, he was absolutely bolted in here, pinged the third last, jumped the last, and he looked like he had loads of gears. Harry Skelton was just dipping him and squeezing him. Has a look to see where Sean Bowen is. He went from Carlisle to Haydock yesterday, where he was 1-5, drops in at the back of the field at Haydock, only 3 runners, and it's stepping stones. Some people don't like stepping stones. They'd want to see him thrown in the deep end yesterday, but I'm a big fan of making the steps in the right direction. Sat in last, didn't learn a whole lot through the start of the race, settled quite well over the first, 5th hurdle down the back. He showed he was quick and he was slick. Third last hurdle then, bit clumsy, but at least he rattled it and got up off the ground, and I loved him from here home. Harry opened him up going to the last hurdle, spots a good stride and pings it, but it was the immediate injection of speed that catches your eye, and seeing is believing. But just being given the office like that and the reaction was really, really exciting. But also the fact he'd sort of settled early on. Dan Skelton said something interesting afterwards, that he's a walk in the park, so he doesn't want to overwork him at home. He wants the track to bring the horse forward. Is that your experience of walking the park? Well, they're on edge. He was on edge himself walking the park. Lots of them are definitely on edge, yep. He was also worried, looking at his pedigree, that he might not be fast enough for 2 miles, but now he's seen Haydock, he's utterly happy. Look fast enough to me, anyway. Yeah, absolutely, right. Formby will be the next stop, that Grade 1 at Aintree on Boxing Day. We're going to hop to Thurles now. Thurles even. Le Divin Enfant. I'm sorry, I'm English. What can I do about it? Le Divin Enfant. And look, this was just a maiden hurdle, but a bit like My Daddy Paddy at Carlisle. It's what impresses you. Look, this turned into a 3-horse race so early. The dots at the front were the ones that were concerned. Hard to know how he jumped because the camera is so wide, but you'd love him at the last and what he does from there to the line. Look, he came with a reputation, and he most certainly enhanced it on his debut. Where he goes next, maybe Christmas, maybe the Lawlers and Ace, but I thought it was a really pleasing debut, and he's one to put on your short list as well. Yeah, it travelled really strongly. Settled, nice travelled, quickened. Yeah. Hard to knock it. Loads and loads and loads to like. Right, sticking with Willie Mullins, Sortudo and his win at Cork. Yeah, it was a decent bumper horse, Sortudo, and he had Jalan Dudari in the Jignestown colours in the middle of the track. Danny rode him. This was on John Durkin Day. Thought he jumped well enough. Again, when he gets down the back, it's hard to know exactly at the previous hurdles what he was doing. Jumps the 4th last well. Looked a little bit in trouble going to the 2nd last. It was 50-50, but he come back on the right at this stage. Pops the 2nd last, lands hind end first, which wasn't great, but quickened up to the last hurdle. Again, a bit green, can improve jumping, was a fairish bumper horse, and yeah, he's a future too. My question is about ground for him. He won it on his debut in bumpers and heavy. He won at Fairy House in soft. That was soft.
does he need that kind of ground or something, or a test perhaps?
Possibly, but if he needs a test, he'll just go up and trip.
True. He was 7th at the Cheltenham bumper. Right, next up, we've got I'll Sort That for Declan Quigley.
Yeah, and look, this fella's having his 4th start over his hurdles and his 3rd this season. Not sure he jumps like a 2-miler, to be honest with you. He's a bit high and a bit awkward. This was in the for auction novice hurdle. Whimsy back in 3rd probably puts a bit of context on the form. But the Flying King does look like he hasn't beaten going to the last. Gordon Elliott's runner on the right-hand side. He gets a much better jump at the last than I'll Sort That, who lands in a heap, really clumsy. But I loved how I'll Sort That picks up and goes again. I think going up in trip will suit him, give him a bit more time to jump. He was a decent bumper horse. He's been busy. He started in a stall, he was the Galway, he's won the for auction. But I think he's a horse you'll hear plenty about.
OK, that's him. We'll next move on to Calypso Chance, winning the Monksfield.
Yeah, decent enough contest as well. They went an OK gallop for this, jumped the first really well, so he did Calypso Chance. The club man is at the back, he's going to chase him home. Awkward here, Calypso Chance, not really sure what he did. The one going along in front was Walk in June of Henry's. Big Frankie John, moved up across the top and made this race competitive a long way from home and turned it into a battle. I like the fact that the three of them were able to go by and go away from Eclipse Chaser in the navy colours with Walk in June fading. But Calypso Chance, to me, he screamed Albert Bart that horse here because the clubman comes to beat him. Stiff finish in Navan, can't get by him. Calypso Chance digs in, and I think he'll be thereabouts come the finish of an Albert Bart.
Yeah, I can see what you mean there. What did you? I mean, he did disappointed at Down Royal, hadn't he?
He did, but Gordon's horses definitely weren't as forward in Down Royal this year as they have been in other seasons, and they've moved forward from there.
And we could see Calypso Chance in the Grade 3 3-mile novice hurdle at Cork on Sunday. For now, we're going to move on to Talk the Talk for Joseph O'Brien.
Big improvement from his debut where he didn't jump great, bit sticky at the first. But Mercia is in front of him. This isn't a novice hurdle, this is an open 4-year-old hurdle. And I thought Talk the Talk did well. I'm Slippy clipped heels at that hurdle. But from the 4th last, these were ganging up to go by Mercia in front, and Talk to Talk, whose jumping had improved throughout, pinged the 2nd last. Race was over going to the last hurdle here when he was gone away from his rivals. And I thought for a horse having his 2nd start over hurdles to come up against older, or not older, but more experienced horses like Mercia and Wenrock, I thought it was a good performance from a 4-year-old.
Agreed. He used to be with Stuart Crawford, now with Joseph O'Brien. Let's move on to Port Authority, who didn't run at the weekend due to a stone bruise in the Royal Bond, but you liked his debut.
Yeah, again, it's just what makes an impression on you in the maiden. Murat in the hood on the left of shot was favoured here, Port Authority, and this looked like to be the maiden hurdle that was actually going to be competitive over the first 2 hurdles, but by the time they got to the 3rd hurdle, it was a 2-horse race. Murat blazed along, and the only one who could follow was Port Authority. 3rd last hurdle, they're strung out like the washing, but I like the way this fella came to the fore. Murat ran out of steam at the 2nd last. Port Authority went to the last and jumped it. Now Jack does pick him up and ask him a question from here home, Port Authority. To me, he's a horse that will have improved for this, but going out and trip will suit him. And again, he was a wide margin maiden winner, who to me was visually impressive to the eye.
He won his sole point-to-point start, and he will be running at Navan on Saturday in the 2.5-mile Grade 2, so we'll be able to see what he can do over that trip. We're now hopping back to Haydock. This was an interesting race. It was dominated by the front 2. It was won by Diamond Hunter.
It was, but there was strength and depth here. You had Masked Man, Stick to the Plan, Double Measure. Obviously the horse on the near side, Masked Man, had been impressive in Chepstow. He took on Diamond Hunter early. Diamond Hunter jumped just okay. This hurdle, I think it was a little bit sticky, landed a bit hind end first. Same again at the 3rd last. But they really quickened down the straight here. Stick to the Plan had been impressive in Ireland and in the Persian War. But I thought, for strength and depth, we've watched plenty of maidens there with no strength to them. I think this was a novice hurdle that had a bit of depth to it, and I thought the winner was good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Chris and Freddie Gordon responsible for the winner. Masked Man and he were well positioned, I thought. Stick to the Plan, I thought, shaped like a bit of a stayer. And I think Double Measure, the way the race panned out, a bit too far back. He was
a bit keen, had to drop in and was then too far back, especially the way that JJ Slevin controlled it out of the back, and they didn't quicken until they got to the 3rd last.
Yeah, I agree, though. Strength and depth in that particular race, which wasn't the case necessarily in some of the other races that we showed you. Let's move on to the Hyde, shall we? The Grade 2 at Cheltenham in November, and this featured no drama this end.
I loved him. Heads up, booked out and made a decent gallop. Was obviously second in last year's Cheltenham bumper. No drama this end. Sat in towards the back. But it was from here. Watch Harry Cobden. This is the fourth last hurdle. As soon as he lands, Harry Cobden's trying to slow this down. They're still climbing the hill and he's trying to slow him down. Like, you can only imagine the feel he was getting. Heads up had gone along, probably on the worst of the track on the inside. Down the hill, third last, you can barely see him in the rain, but when he lands here, you can see Harry turning his head to the right, trying to slow him down on Harry Skelton's boot. And he arrived going to the last hurdle with a good jump to take on Heads Up, and away he goes to win. Look, he runs at Sandown, isn't it, this weekend?
He does, tomorrow.
Instead of the Challow, which surprised Dan Skelton. I'm not sure why, but I thought he was impressive.
Yeah.
I liked him.
Yeah, funny enough, I'm not telling any trade secrets if I said when I introduced the novice hurdling this section, I asked Ruby which horse he would like to include, and the first one he mentioned was No Drama This End, and he struggled to come up with a second one for a while, just on the spot is what I mean.
I did, because you're looking at, I suppose, I did think a fair bit of Heads Up, and he had impressed me at Listowel, and I just thought that fella had him covered from so far from home. And we've seen so many horses with not massive strength and depth or clashes yet in the novice hurdle, so it's hard to get a handle on him, but I did like him.
The reason for the surprise was that Paul Nicholls had said that No Drama This End would head to the Challow, but the horse had worked well. He's got a good horse at home who's in good form, and he looked at the entrance and thought, well, I'll have a go at that. So he did. We've also got the Claremont, of course, which features Sober Glory, who is beaten for Philip Hobbs and Johnson White, 8 to 11 with Harry Cobden on board. So there'll be much to review in this section next week. Right, we're going to wrap up with the chasers, the established chasers, mainly looking ahead to the weekend, but we should mention Panic Attack and what she achieved in the Coral Gold Cup.
Absolutely. I didn't think she'd stay. I'd say she could have went round again. But I loved her fifth last even, the cross fence, her jump. Great win for Tristan as well. But even at the last fence, how she got off the ground, crossed her legs and parted them back again. She was really, really good. Up to a rating of 147 now. It's hard to believe she's won a Paddy Power and a Coral Gold Cup. And there are horses running in the Henry VIII with higher ratings than her. But there are. Explain that one to me, somebody, please. Letters on a postcard, or ideas on a postcard even. But look, to me, she looks tailor-made for a Grand National. 147 will leave her probably 20 off the top.
She's in the December Gold Cup and the King George. I know what you mean. I'd like to see them racing. Right, let's have a look at horses who are racing this weekend. We've got the Peterborough Chase, which was a safety entry for Jonbon. That's over 2.5 miles at Huntingdon. It features DeGello. It features Edwardstone going up in trip. But we're all focused on the Tingle Creek tomorrow. Here is the betting Il Etait Temps, who won the celebration chase here, 5 to 6 ahead of Sud and Jonbon. How will this race be run?
Pretty much like the race was in April time, I would imagine. Cheap pieces on Jonbon. Expect him to book out. Edwardstone will follow. I'd imagine Il Etait Temps. He dropped in Clonmel since this day. But the interesting thing will be what Harry Skelton does. We saw him here in the Schlur and Load of Sud when Jonbon jammed on at the water. Harry took him on, got on top of him going to the ditch, and that was race over. Obviously this time Nico was going to be expecting that tactic, and he won't fall for it. Not fall for it, but he won't get caught a second time. So will he sit out a bit and force Harry to come his inside to give himself more room? Who knows, but tactically it'll be interesting. I do expect Jonbon will be up there and the others will be behind him, but it'll be interesting to see where Nico goes and what Nico does. It'll be a fitter Jonbon, and it should be less testing ground, because although it's quite testing on the hurdle course, not so much on the chase course, typically at Sandown. Yeah, well, probably the hurdle track crosses with the flat track, so it's water at times in the summer, therefore it's a bit slower, but the chase track doesn't get any. But yeah, it depends on what the rain does. But I'm a Jonbon fan, but he let me down the last day. Who wins it? Didn't think I'd say this, but Il Etait Temps. If you're offering me to ride him one, or what? Yeah, Il Etait Temps. Okay. I think he's got to prove it. I think this is by far his toughest test, yes. Hillyway Chase, the return of Majborough, first try in open company out of novice division. Yeah, and look, you found a 50 who's hard fit after running down Royal and winning the 4-3. Energameen's first run. Bambidge's first run this year. Last year he'd had a run before he came here, and he was second. And it'll be interesting, just with the placement of this race. Bambidge had come here last year having his second start and went to the King George. Mightn't be as easy to go to the King George off your first run in the hilly way. So I think Majborough will be the one to beat. And we'll find it. Majborough's the one to beat.
We'll find out what energumen is at his age as well, 11 rising 12, and found a 50 using fitness as a weapon again.
Yeah, he will. Just Cork's a faster track. I don't know. I'd be disappointed if they couldn't beat him.
Is it a slam dunk for Marshborough?
I'd be hoping so.
Would you?
Yep.
Well, it's always tough when you move out of novice company, but we'll be analysing that in full this time next week. If you want more in the meantime, you can head to the Racing TV website /Road to Cheltenham and get my column there. Thank you very much for your thoughts, as ever.
Thank you.
And it's been really, really enjoyable. And I hope you've enjoyed it too. Thank you for your contributions. We'll see you again for Road to Cheltenham this time next week, when we'll have the 2-mile chasers particularly to focus upon. But thank you for watching. We'll see you soon.
Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.